The Swiss Family Robinson, Chapter 34, The Letter Carriers. Next morning, Ernest rose much earlier than usual, and just as I was quitting my room, I saw him descending from the dovecot. As his mother and I sat down to breakfast, he entered carrying a large sealed packet in his hand. It was like an official letter. And with the air of mock dignity, making at the same time a profound obeisance, he thus addressed me: "The postmaster of the sovereign lord of Rock Castle, Falcon's Nest, and the surrounding domains presents his respectful compliments and prays you to pardon delay in the delivery of these dispatches from Wood Grange and other parts of your territories, as the post did not arrive till late last night." My wife and I laughed at the gravity with which that he threw his part, naturally supposing the whole to be only a pleasant jest. I replied accordingly in the same vein: "Well, Mr. Postmaster, and what is the news of which you are the bearer from our distant domains?" To this, Ernest replied by breaking the seal and reading as follows: "The Governor General of Novel Land to the Governor Rock Castle, Falcon's Nest, Prospect Hill, etc., etc. Greetings. Most honored and dear Governor, we learn with displeasure that a force of 3 men belonging to your colony has effected an inroad into our country to prey upon the product of the chase, and have already committed much havoc among the animals of this province. We also learn that a ferocious pair of jaguars has invaded this department and caused great destruction to the domestic animals of our colony. We therefore pray you to repress these disorders as speedily as possible, to recall those hunters and spoilers, to provide against the further ravages of wild beasts, and to take the necessary steps for otherwise protecting the domestic animals and maintaining the legal rights of man. Wishing you all health and prosperity, given at Sydney Cove, this 12th day of the 8th month of the 4th year of our colony, as witness my hand, Philip Phillipson, Governor." His reading finished, Ernest gave way to a hearty fit of laughter as he saw the half-credulous looks of curiosity and anxiety with which we listened to the extravagant dispatch, and began dancing about so wildly that a small note fell from his waistcoat pocket. I reached forward to snatch it up, but Ernest anticipated me. As he picked it up, he said, "This is a private letter from Sydney Cove. I pray you let me read it to you. It contains perhaps truer and more trustworthy details than that of Governor Phillipson, which appears to speak in exaggerated and ungracious terms of the emissaries dispatched from this colony." "You speak of it in enigmas, Ernest," said I. "Fritz perhaps gave you this letter before he set out. Perhaps he then discovered the traces of jaguar in the sand." "Not at all, my dear papa," replied Ernest. "It is indeed a letter from Fritz, sent home to us from Sydney Cove, as they have named that part of the coast. It was a pigeon messenger that brought it to me last night." I congratulated the boy on so happy a thought. "But let us hear the letter," exclaimed his mother, alarmed at the mention of the jaguars, and already picturing to herself all manner of dangers. I was scarcely less intent myself. So Ernest accordingly read aloud the following letter: "Dear parents and my dear Ernest, I write to inform you that our journey and safe arrival at the farm. There we found an enormous jaguar, which had killed 2 of our lambs and was devouring the carcass of a sheep. Francis courageously attacked and killed it, and he deserves the whole honor of the victory. Our dogs assisted with their usual fidelity and bravery. We have spent the day in preparing the skin, which you will find is a beautiful trophy. Our pemmican is not very palatable, but we are happily independent of it. We are all safe and sound, and unite in sending our best love. Your affectionate son, Fritz." This letter was a source of no little satisfaction both to my wife and myself, and we again and again congratulated Ernest on the happy device by which a means of communication had been opened between us and the wanderers. But he was so full of his novel duties as postmaster that he could scarcely think of anything else all day. At last his diligent watch was regarded by seeing a pigeon enter the dovecot towards evening. We immediately examined the bird and found a dispatch tied under the wing. It was signed by our boys and announced in the most laconic terms that they had passed a pleasant night and had captured some black swans. They concluded by intimating their intention to be at Prospect Hill on the morrow. This note reassured us. From other missives which reached us from time to time, we learned the particulars of the capture of 3 young swans, the old ones having proved too strong and agile. They also captured a beautiful large species of heron and startled a large tapir, which somewhat alarmed them by its immense size. They reached Prospect Hill and passed the night there, greatly disturbed by the howling of monkeys and surrounded by abundant tokens of their mischievousness and destructive work. Late on the morrow, they returned home in high glee at their successful excursion, and no less pleased to see us than we were to welcome them. As we talked over their adventures, I found that the boys had made several new and valuable discoveries in the course of their wanderings. I was delighted to recognize among their trophies the cacao bean, of which chocolate is made, the yam, and also the banana, which forms so important an article of food in various countries of America, and with little preparation forms a very good substitute for bread. Fritz had gathered a rather large quantity of cocoa beans, and I determined to at once utilize them. But their preparation was a difficult matter, and indeed, I feared my ignorance would prevent us from availing ourselves of the delightful refreshment of chocolate. Ernest, however, came to my aid and detailed from his reading the process needful for our purpose. The kernels of the cocoa bean are derived of the outer husk by the aid of fire. They are then roasted and afterwards pounded in the heated mortar. The paste thus prepared is mixed with the equal quantity of sugar and formed into cakes for use. We found these chocolate cakes delicious. The virtues of the banana were next discussed, and the boys began to conceive a higher opinion of what I told them it had been called by travelers, the king of vegetables, for it includes in its nourishing and palatable properties all that is needful for the food of man. My wife, who is ever mindful of her garden, no sooner heard the praises of the banana set forth than she became eager to have some of the seeds to plant. She also desired to cultivate the cocoa bean, where it would be equally accessible. But I told her that the banana was best propagated by slips, and as Ernest assured her that he believed the cocoa beans would not grow unless they were put in very speedily after they were gathered. Fritz went the following morning in his canoe and brought home the needful supplies for making these valuable additions to our garden. He likewise brought back with him several yams. The fleshy roots, or more properly, the tubers of most valuable plant, are used in the East and West Indies as an article of food, in the same way as potatoes are in more temperate climates. As they are very large, occasionally weighing 30 pounds, we had not room for many of them. We tried to grow them in our garden also, by planting some of the small tubers which grow in the stem, round the neck of the large tuber, but were not very successful at this.